The docking clamps of the Viridian Dream engaged with a hydraulic hiss that resonated through the ship's old bones. For a moment, the silence was absolute. Then, the alarms began. Not the ship's alarms. Those had been screaming for 3 days, since a micrometeoroid shower had shredded our communications array and holed our primary fuel cells. No, these were the alarms built into my own cowardice, the blaring klaxon of pure, unadulterated terror. Through the scratched viewport, I saw them. The Xylosian dreadnought, a living ship of polished obsidian and pulsing bioluminescent veins, filled my entire field of vision. It was beautiful, and it was death. I was Kalen Vance, a systems mechanic, 3rd class. My job was to recalibrate ionic filters and pretend the galaxy wasn't a vast, hungry beast waiting to swallow people like me. My captain and the other 2 crewmates were already dead, their bodies lost to the void when the hull breached near engineering. I'd only survived because I was in the forward storage locker, rationing the last of the protein paste, too scared to move. Now I was alone and the nightmare was knocking. A shimmering, silver disk materialized through the bulkhead, depositing 3 Xylosians onto my deck. They were tall, elegant, and moved with the terrifying grace of apex predators. Their skin was the color of twilight, their eyes large, liquid, and black. They wore armor that seemed to grow from their flesh. The leader, a male with a crest of sharp bone, scanned the bridge with cold indifference. He spoke, and a translator implant in my ear rendered his sibilant words into flat, emotionless basic. 1 life sign. Bring it. They found me, of course, curled behind a conduit panel, holding a hydrospanner like it was a holy relic. They didn't even acknowledge the tool. One of them, a female with intricate scars on her cheeks, simply reached down, her grip like a vice on my arm, and hauled me to my feet. They didn't speak to me. They didn't need to. They dragged me through the shimmering disk and onto their ship. The Xylosian vessel was a cathedral of nightmares. The corridors pulsed with a soft, internal light. The air was thick, humid, and smelled of ozone and damp earth. Strange, chittering sounds echoed from unseen chambers. They threw me into a cell, a smooth, obsidian bubble with no doors, only a wall of shimmering energy that fizzed with power. I was a specimen, pinned and waiting for dissection. The fear was a physical thing, a cold knot in my gut. I knew the stories. The Xylosian hegemony was an ancient power, and they did not take prisoners. They took resources. They took genetic material. They took trophies. I paced the 10-foot diameter of my prison, hyperventilating, my mind a frantic loop of static. The shimmering wall dissolved, and the scarred female from before stood there, her expression unreadable. "The Queen of Blades will see you now," she said. It wasn't an invitation. It was a death sentence. They marched me through more pulsing corridors, past hulking warriors who watched me with the same curiosity a child might have for an ant before burning it with a magnifying glass. We finally entered a vast throne room. It was organic, grown, not built. Rib-like arches of bone-white coral swept up to a ceiling lost in shadow. Glowing flora sprouted from the walls, casting a sickly green light. And at the far end, on a throne that seemed to be the heart of the entire ship, sat Queen Seraphine Vex. She was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. Taller than her guards, she was clad in armor that was a fusion of chitin and metal. Her face was sharp, beautiful in a way that was utterly alien, and her eyes were endless pits that held the light of dead stars. A crown of jagged, crystalline thorns grew from her brow. She was power incarnate. Beside her stood an interpreter, a smaller Xylosian with a nervous twitch. The queen's lips didn't move, but her voice slammed into my mind, a psychic hammer blow of pure authority. A lone human. From a broken ship. Why? The interpreter stuttered. The Queen asks your purpose in our space. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. What could I say? I was a lost mechanic? A pathetic survivor? That was a story that ended with me being dissected for my genetic uniqueness. I saw it in their eyes. I was nothing. I was less than nothing. The Queen's gaze intensified. A low hum filled the room. I felt a pressure in my skull, a probing, invasive sensation. She was sifting through my mind, my memories, my fears. She would see the truth. She would see my insignificance. And then she found it. A flicker of a memory. An old Earth drama I'd watched on the ship's datanet to pass the long hours. A story of courtly love, of forbidden romance, of a commoner who survived a hostile court by claiming to be the secret lover of the Queen. It was insane. It was suicidal. It was my only chance. I straightened my back, forcing my trembling legs to be still. I met the Queen's terrifying gaze. The pressure in my mind intensified, but I didn't fight it. Instead, I fed the memory to her. I projected it. I let the story of that old drama fill my thoughts, overlaying it with my own desperate, fabricated feelings. I pictured a tryst in the shadow of a forgotten moon, a connection so deep it had to be hidden. I let the lie become my truth. What is this? The Queen's mental voice was sharp, curious. The probing stopped. I swallowed, my throat raw. You know what it is, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. It's why you couldn't kill me the moment I was brought on board. It's why you wanted to see me yourself. The interpreter's eyes went wide. He translated my words, his voice a terrified whisper. The guards shifted, their hands going to their weapons. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. You are a prisoner, the interpreter hissed on behalf of the Queen. A salvage claim. I am her mate, I said, the words hanging in the alien air like a blasphemy. I pointed a shaking finger at the Queen. Ask her. She knows. The bond we share, she felt at the moment I stepped onto this ship. That's why she's hesitating. That's why I'm still alive. I was playing a game with 1,000-to-1 odds. I was betting that Xylosian society, for all its terrifying power, might have a weakness for romantic drama, or at least a biological imperative for mates that they couldn't ignore. The silence stretched for an eternity. The Queen's face was a mask. I could feel the sweat beading on my forehead, threatening to give me away. I was a dead man. I was a fool. Then, the Queen's head tilted, just slightly. A flicker of something amusement? Curiosity crossed her features. She leaned forward, and her mental voice was a whisper only I could hear. A bold strategy, little mammal. Your mind is a storm of lies and fear. But it is interesting. She sat back, her gaze sweeping the room. She spoke, her own voice a melodic chime that the interpreter quickly relayed. The human speaks of a bond of the heart. This is a new concept for us to examine. He will not be processed. He will be moved to the observer's quarters. The guards were confused. The interpreter was stunned. But no one questioned the Queen. I was led away, my legs barely holding me, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I had survived. For now. The observer's quarters were luxurious by Xylosian standards, a large, organic bubble with soft moss for a bed and a gentle, phosphorescent glow. It was a prison, but a gilded one. For 3 days, I was left alone, fed nutrient paste, and given water. I waited for the other shoe to drop, for the Queen to tire of her interesting specimen. On the 3rd day, the shimmering wall dissolved, and she walked in. No guards. No interpreter. Just her. She was out of her armor, wearing a simple, flowing gown of what looked like spun silver. Without the crown of thorns and the carapace, she was beautiful. Still terrifying, but beautiful. Her black eyes studied me as I scrambled to my feet. "So," she said, her own voice a low, musical hum that the implant translated perfectly. "My secret mate, the lover from the stars. You have given my court much to discuss." I stammered. "Your Majesty, I can explain." "Explain what?" She took a step closer, and I instinctively stepped back. "That you lied to save your insignificant life? I know. I have walked the edges of your mind. Your fear is a very loud song." My last hope crumbled. She knew. It was over. Then why am I still alive? I whispered. A slow, terrifying smile spread across her lips. It was a human expression, but on her alien features, it was deeply unnerving. "Because, my mate, your lie was brilliant. It was creative. It was a survival strategy one have never before witnessed. In 3,000 years, no one has ever lied to me. Not like that. Not to my face." She moved closer, circling me like a predator toying with its prey. "You painted a picture so vivid, so emotionally charged, that it gave my psychic probes pause. It was art, and I am an appreciator of the arts." She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the strange, cool energy radiating from her. "The Xylosian way is conquest and consumption. It is our nature. But lately, I have grown bored of nature. Your lie has introduced a new variable into my court. The nobles are whispering. They are confused. They are curious. For the first time in a century, I have their full attention." She reached out and touched my cheek with a single, sharp-nailed finger. It was a cold, electric touch. "So here is your new truth, Kaelin Vance. You are my mate, not by bond, but by decree. You will play the part. You will stand beside me. You will be the unpredictable, artistic element in my court. You will help me rule." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "And if I refuse?" Her smile widened, revealing a hint of sharper teeth. "Then I will have to explain to my court how I was so foolishly deceived by a terrified little mammal. And my pride simply will not allow that. The dissection would be long and very, very creative." She leaned in, her face inches from mine. The scent of ozone and something floral filled my senses. "Besides," she whispered, her voice a silken promise, "you might find that being the queen's mate, even a fake one, is far more interesting than recalibrating ionic filters. Now, come, we have a court to surprise." She held out her hand, her cold, powerful, terrifying hand. I looked from her face to her hand and back again. The galaxy was indeed a vast, hungry beast. But sometimes it seemed the beast could also be coaxed into a dance. A slow, treacherous smile of my own began to form. I was no longer Kaelin Vance, the cowardly mechanic. I was the queen's mate, a living lie in a court of nightmares. I took her hand. It was cold. It was strong. And as she led me out of my gilded prison and into the pulsing heart of her ship, I realized with a jolt of pure, insane wonder that I was no longer just surviving. I was beginning to enjoy it,